In our last session, we looked at some useful tools related to security. We'll continue that discussion today. Broadly speaking, how are companies currently tackling security issues?
It seems to vary slightly depending on the company and its industry. For instance, some companies are designated as national security facilities. According to recent media reports, even those companies are exploring ways to collaborate with Meta to download language models like Llama locally, ensuring they operate exclusively within the company's network. Many of the large corporations we know are taking this approach of downloading local LLMs to build chatbots or implement other AI features. However, even within those companies, approaches differ by department. Some areas, like an HR department using an AI chatbot for leadership coaching, handle information that is not sensitive from a security standpoint. Since these areas are not directly related to security, some connect to external APIs to leverage large language models. Personally, I believe this is also a transitional phase. Assuming that companies must ultimately operate their own infrastructure, many predict this infrastructure will one day run in a cloud environment. Then the question becomes, who is the cloud provider? There are several, including Microsoft, IBM, and Amazon. And all of these cloud providers, without exception, also offer AI language model services. Therefore, if we receive our IT services through the cloud, we will soon be able to easily leverage the AI features of that provider. Even if it takes some time, the overall trend is moving towards the cloud. If that's the case, it won't be long before the various AI technologies we can experience will be integrated into our work systems.
So if we use Microsoft Azure, all our data is already there, so we can just use the AI model built into Azure without any security concerns. It's that simple.
Yes, that's right. However, issues like governance and risk management are still under discussion, so not many companies are actively trying to adopt all AI features just yet. But we are seeing a trend where AI provided by solution companies is becoming a default feature. For example, once Copilot is integrated into the MS Office we use, an AI assistant will always be on the side of our screen to help with tasks. Additionally, some companies are using Google Workspace as their default groupware. Since AI functionalities are also being integrated into Workspace, using the AI features in Google Sheets and Google Docs is naturally becoming part of their workflow.
I'm sure many people want to start using AI in their work right away. You must have met many who can't because of company security policies, right?
Yes, I've met many. A conversation I had with one employee who was in a dilemma is particularly memorable. Let's call this person Mr. A. When ChatGPT first came out, Mr. A immediately signed up for the paid version. So, I've had extensive conversations with AI. As time went on, I became a paid subscriber to various AI tools and have been using them frequently, from Gemini in the past to JSpark more recently. To be honest, up until that point, I was using AI purely for personal interest, as a hobby. Then apparently this happened one day. His team leader said, "We need to create a report based on these research findings, but we're on a tight deadline." So Mr. A noted the instructions, went home and had an AI do the work. As expected, the AI quickly searched various resources and produced a result. He then came back to the office, created a report based on that output, and presented it to his boss. The team leader was thrilled. Time went on, but Mr. A started to feel a sense of disillusionment. When I asked why, he cited two main reasons. First, to use AI, he had to take company work home with him. He couldn't even email the files due to security, so he had to memorize details or jot down brief notes to do the work at home. The second reason was a sense of doubt. I'm doing company work, so why am I spending my own money? At first he enjoyed it and his boss was satisfied, so he used it a few times. But as time went on, he felt conflicted, asking himself, why do I have to take company work home and spend my own money to do it? So Mr. A decided to distance himself from AI. He figured the company wouldn't approve these AI sites overnight, so he should just work according to the company's environment. But that's where the problem began. His team leader became very dissatisfied with his performance.
His boss's perception changed to, why is he so bad at his job now?
What happened? In the past, you could gather high-quality information from various sites and produce something in just 2 or 3 days. Why can't you do that anymore? Why, when I give you the exact same task, does it now take you a week or even 2 to create the report? He says he is now facing this dilemma. It seems employee A is in a tough spot, truly stuck on what to do. He explained that for now, he's trying to get by without using AI, but he feels he won't be able to hold out for much longer. And this is a scenario that is now starting to play out across many companies.
Is that a real story you just told?
And there is an even more serious issue we need to prepare for. Everyone, how do you think university and graduate students study these days?
Of course they use AI. I ask it questions every day.
They absolutely do. My generation studied by highlighting textbooks and papers with fluorescent pens and sticking on post-it notes. Nobody studies like that anymore. They use AI features on their tablets to summarize key content and even practice by asking, give me 5 potential assignment questions from this paper. But the real issue starts now. It will likely become a problem starting with next year's new hires. Hey Hong, what if I were to tell you, you're starting work tomorrow? Now let's see you do your job after deleting the entire MS Office suite from your laptop.
I can't do that.
It would be a baffling situation. Now let's translate that to our generation's experience. Imagine we joined a company, they give us a laptop, we boot it up, and there's no MS Office. Excuse me, manager, my laptop doesn't have Office. It doesn't. If you need it, you'll figure it out. The company only provides the laptop. How absurd would that sound? But in a few months, next year's new employees will say the exact same thing. Manager, my laptop doesn't have AI. All the AI sites are blocked. How am I supposed to work? When they ask that, what will we say?
As an HR expert, let me ask you, in that situation, is it right to hire smart candidates from our perspective, those who studied without AI? Or is it better to hire someone who is skilled at using AI and then provide an environment where they can use it freely?
I don't think anyone knows the answer to that. Many companies are using the term AI transformation, vowing to innovate with AI and offering training under the catchphrase, we will cultivate our employees into AI experts. However, when a new employee joining next year actually says, okay, let me really try using it, the preparations to support them are still largely inadequate. I say this because when I tried low-code development myself, I saw people starting to create apps in areas one would never have imagined. In my mind, I have this picture of very classic common systems like ERP, MIS, HRIS, and CRM. But when you think about the individual employees, the reality is that the specific functions they each want to use are all different. And then there's the shock these newcomers will face. Consider these young people who have already experienced a wide diversity of AI services before even entering the company. When they come on board, the shock they'll encounter, that will likely create a situation that we can't even begin to imagine.
Our minds are rigid, stuck in old conventions about what AI can do. But the new generation will come up with completely novel methods asking, why are we processing it this way? We can just do it like this with AI.
Exactly. On that note, I want to discuss the question, where should we apply AI? From a different perspective. When we work, it's rarely the case that we can't do our job because we lack a tool. Of course, with better, more modern tools, performance and productivity would increase, but a situation where work is impossible due to a complete lack of tools doesn't exist. Let me tell you a story from a long time ago. When I first started my career, an employee from a client company gave me his business card. The email on the card was a DOM email address, quote, dom.net. I thought, is this for real? When I asked why he didn't have a company email, he asked me back, why do we need email? Our company has an internal mail courier system. An internal courier carried a document pouch and visited every department every hour. His point was, why send an email when we have this system? And if we use email, what happens to the courier's job? At that time, that company had one shared email account per department. It's a those were the days kind of story. This exact situation is happening again today. When we try to apply AI, people say, do we lack tools? What's so inconvenient that we need AI? Isn't that just adopting AI for the sake of AI? They argue, we already have ERP, CRM, and all the tools we need, don't we? This is where we need to change our viewpoint. AI does not replace single-function applications. The key point is what I mentioned earlier about analyzing my own work. You have to look at the entire context, including the tasks that come before and after yours. Similarly, if you ask, where should we introduce AI into our company's legacy systems? The answer is between applications. AI doesn't replace the applications themselves. For instance, no matter how great an AI tool is, it can't replace MS PowerPoint or MS Word. Instead, there is a gap between MS Word and Teams. There is another gap between MS Teams and the company's announcement system, or its ERP system. AI steps into these gaps to provide connectivity. There are two important perspectives here. I've mentioned that from an individual's perspective, the process of figuring out how to use AI starts by breaking down one's own work. Similarly, from a corporate perspective, the task ahead will be to examine our existing application architecture, identify the gaps between applications, and proceed with the work of implementing AI to fill those spaces. For example, let's assume our company's most critical task is predicting grain prices. To do this, you need weather data, logistics information, and geopolitical information, such as the conflict in Ukraine, a major grain producer. Systems to track each piece of this data already exist. However, the domain of AI is to gather all this information, analyze it, provide guidance to users, and flag risks. Pulling individual data to create charts or analyze historical trends is possible with existing systems, but aggregating all this complex data to give you insight is what AI does best. AI is what creates this linkage between a company's applications. Let me expand on this. Once this happens, all applications become interconnected. What's the benefit? From this point on, an intelligent workflow becomes possible. In the past, it was impossible to see how the entire company was operating from a single system. It required creating countless dashboards and the manual effort of many people just to get a glimpse of the overall picture. But the moment an intelligent workflow is created, it's like being able to pinpoint exactly where a problem is in the body's vascular system. Adopting AI is not about implementing a chatbot to get fun or insightful answers. From a manager's perspective, it's about understanding what is our company's business flow and what decisions do I need to make within that flow. Until now, you received separate reports for inventory, logistics, production, and HR. Now, with the help of AI that connects all of these, truly intelligent management and even the realization of a management philosophy becomes possible. This is the point we need to watch carefully.
That idea of filling in those gaps, it sounds a bit like an agentic AI.
That's right. In fact, that's precisely why agentic AI is an area that companies are monitoring with great interest. Individual applications have already been optimized for efficiency. However, the new technology needed to connect them simply hadn't emerged until now. RPA emerged, but it was only capable of mechanical automation. Until now, there was no technology that could intelligently produce an output by making function calls to multiple applications. Therefore, this concept of an agent or agentic AI is arguably the most significant technological trend directly impacting businesses today.
I think we've only been focusing on individual tools. We were only thinking, how can I use these tools more easily? Or how can I get the computer to help more so I do less? But the truly important part was the space between applications.
That's right. And these agent-like capabilities are now being built into many AI services. Let me show you my Claude account as an example. Let's look at a command I gave to Claude. The request was a bit complex. I'm looking for potential HVAC manufacturing partners in Southeast Asia. They must have ISO quality certification, and their revenue must be over approximately $720,000 USD. They also must have experience doing business with Korean companies. And the company must not be involved in corruption or have any negative publicity regarding its management.
You ask an AI to do something like that?
Yes. In the past, if we were to Google this, we would have had to break down the query into pieces. First, search for Southeast Asia HVAC manufacturers, then another search for ISO quality certification. In the end, a human would have had to compile all this information to get a result. What you're seeing now is a prime example of an agent's capabilities. Let's trace Claude's steps one by one. First, it searches for HVAC manufacturers in Southeast Asia to find companies that meet the criteria. It searches for manufacturers again to confirm their specialties. I specified the revenue requirement. Among those, it looks for ones with a history of business with Korean companies and then cross-checks that information. Southeast Asian HVAC manufacturers with a history of business with Korean companies. It then looks up their performance records again. After checking their performance, it searches for the candidate companies on news sites. After comprehensively checking for any negative issues or corruption reports, it starts presenting the list of companies it found. The list was good, but it looked inconvenient to me, so I asked it to create a dashboard. Now let's look at the result in the dashboard. As you can see, it looks like the final output of a professional research report. It even analyzes strengths, weaknesses, and considerations that I didn't ask for. Interestingly, it seems one company had some negative publicity. So it even gives a recommendation. Put this company on hold. The term agent itself personifies a machine, doesn't it? It truly breaks down the task into steps and conducts research just like a human would. It even shows the process of turning the research results into a dashboard. Finally, I asked it to create it in PowerPoint format. It replied that it couldn't create a PowerPoint file directly, but could give me ideas on how to structure the dashboard content in a presentation, and that's how it concluded. We are now beginning to delegate very difficult and complex tasks to AI. There are other examples besides the one I just showed you. For instance, I want to hire a head of AI who graduated from specific universities, has over 10 years of experience in manufacturing, has published papers under their own name, and has several years of experience at a foreign competitor. A request like this would take a headhunter a significant amount of time. Handling these complex requirements is what an agent does. Now let's imagine this agent coming inside a corporation. We would no longer need to look at production, manufacturing, finance, and logistics data separately. The example I just showed used only public internet data. So many companies might be thinking, but all our company's information is inside our intranet systems. For those companies, I'd like to recommend a site called Suna.so. Functionally, Suna.so is almost identical to Claude. If you ask it a complex question, it will respond just like Claude. But the most interesting part is that it's open source. The entire source code is available on GitHub. So what does a company need to do? Download all of that source code internally. Of course, some parts like API connections might need to link externally, but after downloading the code, you connect those APIs not to the outside world, but to your own company's internal legacy systems. Once that's done, it can analyze your various internal legacy systems and provide answers at the same level as what you saw with Claude. And many other AI service companies besides Suna are currently creating and providing these kinds of open source agents. Building an agent in a corporate setting isn't just about creating a chatbot that answers questions like a human. It's about creating an AI that deeply understands your company's applications, is connected to them, and can generate new insights from that connection. That is the true meaning of an agent. These capabilities are already implemented in services you may know, like Manus, Genspark, and even Gemini. It seems this is becoming the new normal for AI services, taking a complex request, breaking it down into a list of tasks, solving each one, and then presenting the final result in a user-friendly format. That is the role of an agent.
So, as you said, a company can download an open source tool like Suna.so, connect it to their own legacy systems, and use it as their internal agent. Wow, that's truly amazing.
Because of this, concepts like application architecture and application management within corporations are also gradually changing. Whereas before all applications were standalone, now the focus must shift to how to connect and expand them within the enterprise. Furthermore, how many APIs an application provides has become a critical decision-making factor for adoption. Let's consider a company that runs entirely on cloud services. For instance, our company uses the cloud version of Office 365, and for our HR system, we use Workday or SAP SuccessFactors. We use SAP's Cloud ERP and Salesforce.com for CRM. All of these cloud-based SaaS providers naturally offer APIs. Since they all provide APIs, the challenge of how to weave them together to create insights becomes purely a battle of ideas. However, many companies also have on-premise systems built long ago through SI projects. Those systems often don't provide APIs, so developers have to build new API functionalities. If you can manage to bundle these existing on-premise systems, say S Solutions, and other services in a single API hub, then you can actively involve AI. You can then say to the AI, "Okay, I've created an environment where you can see everything. Now go through this data and find all the risk factors that other companies typically experience."
So what you just described is what we can call an intelligent workflow.
That's correct.
So the core concept is that by building a system that effectively connects previously fragmented applications and then integrating AI on top of that, we can gain insights that were previously unattainable. When you were looking at AI 1 or 2 years ago, did you think this future would arrive so quickly?
1 or 2 years ago, I only saw the potential. For example, interpreting errors in a single system or analyzing data generated from a single system was possible back then. However, I came to this line of thinking less from a systems perspective and more from the perspective of individual work innovation. People ask so many questions like, will my job survive in the age of AI or will it disappear? No one knows the definitive answer, but those who understand the full context of their work, what comes before, after, and alongside it, will definitely survive. So individuals too must grasp the context and meaning of their work and think, at this intersection, what should I excel at? What should I innovate? If we can identify those things, it becomes natural to think that in business management, AI's next role will be to handle the linkage between applications. These two concepts are two sides of the same coin. The employees working at a company must have this concept of connection in order to make the AI operate that way. And from the company's perspective, it must provide an environment where employees who think this way can actually use such AI systems in their work. For nearly 100 years, we have developed within a hierarchical structure focused only on our assigned tasks, working under the stereotype that your perspective widens only as you move up in rank. That's why it's so difficult to answer how to survive in the age of AI. The very fact that you find it difficult to see how your fragmented task can be replaced by AI or how you can get help from AI is proof that you are not seeing your own work three-dimensionally. It also seems to be a fact that companies are still struggling to form a big picture for where and how to implement AI because their applications and even their overall business management structures remain fragmented.
We started by talking about tools and have now moved on to the transformation of work itself. For example, in the past, when making soy sauce, one person did everything from making the fermented soybean blocks, meju, onwards. Through industrialization and the division of labor, that process became fragmented. One person only makes meju, another only ferments the soy sauce. It seems we should see this fragmented process as being transformed once again by AI, and that transformation has already begun.
Exactly. Philosophers often use the expression a continuous cycle of thesis, antithesis, and synthesis, don't they? Concentration followed by diffusion, then dispersion. This pattern has been proven historically, and it seems certain in technology as well. Secondly, as someone mainly from HR, I focus on how people work. Modern HR techniques have evolved to break down work into tiny pieces, clearly defining the task for the most junior employee and maximizing scientific efficiency. But AI is starting to take a step back and look at the whole picture. It approaches tasks from a perspective of, I can do this task, that task, and that other task. I can handle them all, so we can eliminate those separate roles. Therefore, the way employees work must also change to be more comprehensive, to understand the full context of their tasks. This is the concept of the full-stack worker that I mentioned in my last lecture. The project worker concept was something I also created with that meaning in mind.
So what was highly specialized for efficiency can now be handled entirely by one person with the help of AI, maintaining that efficiency. Working like a project worker could reduce communication costs and allow us to return to a more integrated way of working like in the past. Many people seem to be looking at AI from an industrial age perspective, thinking there are many things it can't do. However, if you consider that the very way we work is changing, it becomes clear that the power of AI and the changes it will bring are progressing much faster. And more significantly than we think, it seems we've already entered an era where we must accept this and change with it in order to survive.
Yes, the future is always right in front of me. I'd like to end with that thought. I don't think we ever fail to prepare because we don't know what the future holds.
Today you addressed the concerns of those who can't easily use AI due to corporate security issues and introduced some tools they might find useful. Then, Director Deok-jung Kim also explained that to truly gain these insights, the key question is how to fill the gaps between applications. He stated that having AI take on this role will be immensely helpful for companies and will bring about significant change. This time, we not only learned about individual tools, but also gained insight into the broader changes we need to embrace. Next time, we'll ask you about other interesting tools. Thank you again for sharing such fascinating news with us today. We'll see you again.